do have an era of confidence in what is a very dire matchup for them.
Absolutely. A win here is so incredibly important for them. There's Golden Guardians, who's currently on an 8-game loss streak. That's their main competition for that playoff spot. But Golden Guardians does have an easier matchup tomorrow against Dignitas, whereas Immortals will have to play CLG. So really just getting 1 or 2 wins greatly increase Immortals' chances of making playoffs.
Bringing it into their own hands if they do get that victory here today for FlyQuest. Picking up that LeBlanc as the first pick. The desk was just talking about how pivotal toucouille is to the success of FlyQuest. When he's able to pop off, when he and JoseDeodo are working in tandem, it's victory for them in the headlines. It
is, and I think that's been part of why they actually haven't been finding as many wins during the loss streak they had leading up to the Super Week, is the two of them were just not necessarily able to get the kind of leads they were earlier on in the season. But toucouille has 5 Player of the Game awards in the 8 wins. So actually, the majority of the time that they win, it's because toucouille is popping off.
That level head that he brings into the later portions of the game to really pull out those clutch plays. And for Immortals, they did take the Sivir pick away that has been running rampant and spittily across the Rift over the course of 12.14. And because of that, choosing to go Aphelios, Lulu, also good to set up a lot of these compositions we've seen, even from FlyQuest, for instance, when you only have a Sejuani or something, right? And you have wild growth there available to really set that pick up for success. I'm curious to see what direction IMT do go.
Yeah, I think they're trying to go front to back. Whenever you pick Aphelios, you're generally setting up for a teamfight comp. But I will say, LeBlanc is one of the best mid laners into Aphelios because it makes it very hard for him to approach teamfights without risking getting one-shot. So not only is it going to be difficult to navigate teamfights against LeBlanc for lost Aphelios, it's also going to be fairly hard to win lane against Lucian Nami, which, even though that combo has not won that many games in LCS, it's still a very strong laning duo.
Yeah, the synergy between those two picks has been very formidable of times past. And then all of these bot lane duos have, at this point, had a lot of experience on it, because it's not just here in summer, but even prior where you saw that ramp up. So leaning on that familiarity is a direction that a lot of teams do go in this final week of the regular season.
Absolutely, and you can see mismatched roles being locked in so far. No mid laner has been matched by Immortals yet. They will likely have that pick on 4. Going up against LeBlanc, there's nothing that's great, but I do expect FlyQuest to throw a couple bans their way. Lissandra would be the kind of answer, even though I don't necessarily think it's a counter pick, and that's smartly banned away by Fly.
Just having a mid laner with the tools to lock down any forward aggression from the opposition is something that Lissandra has really that capability of. So making sure that she's not available. Immortals also making sure they're taking that eye on what's been locked in thus far. So you take away a jungler in Lee Sin, you take away a top laner in Gwen, and now FlyQuest rounding out their bans as well. But the Wukong, another playmaker that has definitely been making the Rift his jungle.
And a pretty good denial pick. JoseDeodo has had several good Wukong games. It's also a strong amount of engage that FlyQuest does require out of the jungle. Trundle's still available though, so I'd expect that to be the jungle pick once it gets back to FlyQuest. And I'm curious what mid laner Immortals goes with now, because I do think they should pick mid here. But instead they actually decide to blind pick their top laner. Slight bit of disrespect there at Philip, saying that he's not going to be able to counterpick the Sejuani adequately, and they'd rather take the strongest frontline tank available off the table. So we'll see how that plays out in terms of Immortals wanting to play front to back.
Yeah, I was wondering where they were going to go with that top side pick, because while I think there is a lot to commend from Philip in general, the way he's been able to slot into this team, there are those moments that you can look at with that newness of him as a player that you can maybe try to exploit if you're on Immortals' side. But now resigning revenge to play that Sejuani, set up for the team fights later, and make sure that he shows that prowess.
Absolutely, and we have seen this actually more this week. Even CLG, who normally would save counterpick for Dokla, picked Ornn on 4 instead of waiting to counterpick their top laner. And it also really does fit the front-to-back team fighting of Immortals. But we got a Vi.
Vi making her way from other regions right here into the LCS.
Absolutely. So who cares about Trundle? This FlyQuest team is all in on killing Lost. That's really what it is. So much lockdown potential between Vi and LeBlanc. I understand why PoE would go with Ahri there, almost a defensive mid lane pick. Even with 3 dashes though, the lockdown potential of Vi LeBlanc combined with Burst can still threaten kills on mid. So you can definitely see what FlyQuest want to do in this game.
Definitely keeping their eyes on those single targets. So you're noting how FlyQuest want to lock on those points of power. What about IMT side? How are you feeling of their chances with this team fight composition that they've brought through?
They want to go late. They do not want to get ran over in the early game. It's important that Lost can get up to Bloodthirster at least, so he can have a bit of an overshield, and then him plus Lulu can make it harder to burst him with LeBlanc. And then they try and use their strong front line of Sejuani, Wukong, and fight around objectives. But it will be Fly at least a little bit of time in the playoffs, but Immortals, if they do not do well in these next 2 games and Golden Guardians is able to pick up a win, Immortals would fall out of playoffs. So very much playing for their season in this one.
And on the FlyQuest side, JoseDeodo and all of FlyQuest do refuse to settle for anything but the best. Let's take a listen.
For me, being top 4 is good, you know, compared to last year and last split, but I won't be satisfied. Last time I was in Worlds was in 2020. It was a really fun experience. I enjoyed it a lot. You know a lot of players, you learn a lot from other good teams. So it's really, I think for rookies like Philip, it's really a nice experience, you know. So I would like to go Worlds again.
I remember watching JoseDeodo in those Worlds performances, some Elise outplays, a lot of patience that he executed, where he was such a bright light for his region and people looking, oh, there's so much talent over in LATAM, and then FlyQuest zooming in, picking him up, bringing him here. But he's been wanting to find that level of success on this team.
Absolutely. He had actually, I remember watching it when I was in the TL facility because it was just kind of on between scrims, but his team had this miracle run even to qualify for Worlds, and he was carrying so many of these games. So he's been such a hype prospect for going on 2 years now, and you definitely have noticed some of the growing pains of trying to play in a higher level league and succeed, but he has had a consistent growth curve ever since he's joined the league.
And for FlyQuest in general, we've seen the pieces change around JoseDeodo. Here in the bot lane, as we see Johnsun and Aphromoo being that reunited duo from Dignitas, a cool story brewing with also toucouille coming into the fold. If you're looking at JoseDeodo as a bright light of LATAM, toucouille really being a face of the French scene and coming here into the LCS, a lot of players that you can really latch onto if they do find those Ws on the Rift.
Absolutely, and you can see Ignar trying to play very aggressively. The early trading here, and who can get level 2 first, so important, but also a very quick gank by Kenvi in top lane.
And Kenvi loves to play aggressive in the times that are brought into light, and that's what he's doing right now, directly on Philip, who wants to execute the patience, wants to hold on to his summoners. Last second, has the flash away. He's under the turret. Kenvi drags his life, grabs first blood.
If that doesn't get the kill, it's such a disaster, but they clutch it out. They really don't get that much out of it, though, because he's put behind his jungle so quickly. Jose immediately realizes he hasn't gone for Raptors, so he's going to counter jungle those away. It's now 4 camps to 2 in the jungle, and the gold didn't even go to Revenge. So Philip, yes, he's flashless, but it's just the teleport that he expended, and he's right back on the Rift, able to bully Revenge.
Revenge lost a lot of HP back there, and Philip wants to punish it, but the waves are set, and no more aggression coming from him. I was wondering what we would see from Kenvi, because if we look at what people were latching onto before he came into the LCS, this jungler that has a high presence in lane, that can really make these plays happen, sometimes high resource, but can be that aggressor to bring the team over the finish line. And then when coming onto Immortals, a lot of different looks, but here we're seeing some of his past prowess.
Yeah, and this was very much a gank trying to punish Philip for being aggressive, but if that Arctic Assault lands by Revenge, I think this play works. Philip dodges it with the reaction EOA, and that just buys him enough time to get away. I think if he was to play this again, he might have flashed early, unless he was just so confident that they couldn't kill him. Kenvi barely gets his E back up again. Otherwise, it would have been first blood for nothing. But it's still a great result for Philip regardless, and a really difficult thing, I think, for Kenvi to bounce back from in terms of all the time he lost in his early jungle.
I do commend Philip's choice to try and hold on to that flash as long as possible in that moment right now, also making sure to place a deeper ward so he can keep eyes on if Kenvi wants to punish the absence of that flash, but JoseDeodo running into Kenvi.
Safe.
Right over here at Scuttle, toucouille's already made his rotation over, as well as PowerOfEvil looking to clone over the wall. Rejoined by Revenge. Toucouille flashes forward, gets him with the chains, and FlyQuest answer that engage.
Phillips Q over the wall there to allow toucouille to get back in range of LeBlanc was huge. But this is all just an extension of that choice to try and kill Philip early on in the game, and it has been punished. Kenvi wasn't willing to give up both crabs, didn't want to fall that far behind, but it just goes from bad to worse. Jose does need to take a recall at some point, but he is just so far ahead of the curve right now in the jungle.
Sometimes that pressure to double down on a choice that you made previously can be a slick slide that you can fall down if you're not too careful about it.
He's going for more, so he still hasn't shocked, so this is a little more dangerous this time. Here we might be able to collapse because JoseDeodo is not sitting on any extra items, and yes, he does get pushed off.
Backs away, doesn't want to take it or be too greedy here. Starting to path back up over towards this top side, warding in the favor of FlyQuest. Revenge, does he respect it or not? Starts to slam on to Philip, coming on in, slamming on up with the buy-ins here. Baby, slaughter that pig.
Maybe he just never goes back to base. Maybe he just continues to stay on the Rift and kill people. Who needs to shop? There's no way Revenge expected him to stay that long for that gank, but a beautiful read by JoseDeodo to get that kill.
Maybe he's been playing a lot of ARAMs and saying, hey, what can I do the longer I stay before I make my return? And so far, working out for FlyQuest, making sure to not get too greedy, though, in some of these moments. Kenvi also intruding upon FlyQuest jungle. When you have that intel of where the plays just went down, it opens up some of that farming opportunity for Immortals side. PowerOfEvil having to heal up.
Very aggressive trading in the mid lane there, but no Ahri ult or flash burn. PowerOfEvil just going to try and keep push to maybe allow the team some more levers in this game. And remember, let's think about the team compositions. FlyQuest is the team that is supposed to be pushing the tempo early, and Immortals is the team that wants to scale. I think that early gank attempt by Kenvi was a hope of like, hey, if this gank works, then Sejuani is going to be completely fine against Aatrox. But actually, in terms of the CS in that lane, it is somewhat equal. It's about a 500 gold difference. It's more about whether or not JoseDeodo can take over the rest of the map. Because a 1,200 gold lead, if it sits like this, would be fine for Immortals. They just really need to slow this game down.
That is always the question when you have this team that is supposed to focus early. How much of that advantage do you need to get to really make it worth it and try and send Immortals off of their kilter before they scale into those later portions of the game? JoseDeodo right now making his way over towards that dragon side scuttle because we are at 720. Meaning major objectives have started to fall in line with a possibility for these teams.
Yeah, I actually wonder when FlyQuest is going to be able to go for this first dragon, because we're already about 7.5 minutes into this game, and threatening Dragon Soul, I think, is one of FlyQuest's best win conditions in this one. So with where JoseDeodo is on his pathing, likely to still hand blue buff over to LeBlanc, then go to Gromp. Rift Herald will probably then be the next objective, so it's unlikely that we're seeing this Drake being taken before 10 minutes. So even though the gold in the early game is mostly gone to FlyQuest, Immortals is not in that terrible of a spot.
With that attention being paid over towards the top side, the bot lanes for both of these teams have pretty much been going toe-to-toe.
Yeah.
Where if you are looking to make those dragon plays, it's often off of the back of some kind of advantage in either the mid lane or the bot lane, but here, pretty even keeled on that bottom side.
Yeah, I think Lost and Ignar have actually played this early game quite well to not get punished much by Lucian Nami. One power spike they're going to have to be very cautious of is when Lucian and Nami get their mythic items. And I am not a fan of that force by Kenvi. I think Immortals wants to stall this game. There's no way he can finish that Herald himself.
A blast cone over the wall to start it up, but there is a ward in favor of FlyQuest here, so they knew he came through. They knew that he's off of it. PowerOfEvil getting focused, but has Ignar here for that additional level of protection, which means we've officially started to crack open from that bot lane restriction where most of the earlier portions, both teams were just residing there nice and comfortably, farming up, and now you have to worry about that roaming threat.
Yeah, that was just an illegal Rift Herald by Kenvi at the time, because Lost hadn't even rotated up. But now Nami has shown bot, and the Rift Herald still isn't dead. So we might have a fight around that Rift Herald. We'll see.
Calling
Let's go.
just used by Johnsun. All the attention on the top side. Rift Herald going down. JoseDeodo is the one to pick it up. But some resources used here on the bot side.
Yeah, culling traded for health. Whew. Nice little poke on Kenvi. Okay, they're back on the map with Vi. JoseDeodo has Vi ultimate. I'm expecting him to try and get a fight bottom, because if they can get any type of kill, that's how they start blowing this game open. Rift Herald and a gank usually means about 4 plates.
Lots of flashes at the ready as well for both teams if they do want to aggress into a play. We saw that JoseDeodo is here on the bot side. Lost going for it a bit, gets a good chunk on Johnsun, throws him with the Moonlight Vigil for even more damage onto Johnsun with this Lucian.
Whoa.
Into the back, ulted up on PowerOfEvil, who has to flash away. And they continue to go for the fight. JoseDeodo over the wall. Immortals directly keeping their sights on to this dragon, starting to slam it down. No lives were lost, but they did get a lot of summoners and the ultimate out of the jungler here in JoseDeodo, so Immortals feel confident in being able to take this.
Really positive play for Immortals here, being able to pick up this Mountain Dragon. It also makes it much more difficult for Vi LeBlanc to burst anyone in this game, getting an extra 9% armor and magic resistance on everybody. They're dropping the Herald mid.
Kenvi is here to make sure that it's not a lonesome Herald with nobody from IMT to make sure to finish her off. So gets the single charge. We're still in that plate territory here at 11 minutes, so decent amount of gold that FlyQuest were able to accrue to try to continue bumping up little by little that gold lead.
Yeah, I mean, they're still up 2,000 gold. In a lot of ways, that is a win for them. But actually finding the way to win the game at this point, they're going to have to really extend this gold lead and probably win through Baron. I think if it gets to a point where they're Dragon Soul, there'd be enough gold on Immortals that Immortals can probably win team fights. So quite an interesting game, even if the start went heavily in favor of FlyQuest.
Immortals have plenty of reason to not worry too much just yet because of the reasons you just said if it goes later on.
It is really tough to play team compositions like this because especially as a, I mean, even if we're going to take Kenvi as an example, he's a player who's just been so successful at taking agency and winning games. But right now, Immortals' way of winning is to try and make as little happen as possible, which it just actually fights against your instincts as a player. So really difficult to stay disciplined and take enough risks to get the vision required to play safe.
I think that's why the adjustments that they make right now are pivotal, because that kind of slipping slide that we were talking about earlier, if you continue to kind of throw your head into a certain play and let it get under your skin, then it can be very worrisome. But right now, time to farm up, time to make sure that you keep up with JoseDeodo on Vi, who is ahead in farm, as well as kill participation.
But they're matching mythic items, Wukong versus Vi. So I don't think Vi necessarily even wins the 1v1 that hard against the Wukong right now. It's very difficult for FlyQuest to make a play happen onto PoE if he just keeps clearing the wave and playing safe. And then they still have 5 plates in top and bottom, so not forcing the issue is possibly the best play for Immortals right now, but we'll see.
Now, all the while, with those 5 plates being completely up over on that top side, it's Revenge and Phil that have been left up there once again. Revenge previously using his teleport to get back into lane, so you know that he's not really expecting to join any fights anytime soon, because you still have over 220 until the next dragon comes up, and more beyond that.
Yeah, doing some quick math, that dragon goes down. We're at 1530. Even if they conceded 2 dragons in a row, we're not even going to have the 3rd dragon by FlyQuest being taken until around like 27, 28 minutes. And by then, Immortals would definitely be stronger in 5v5s if they can hold this gold advantage at 2,500. So I want to see FlyQuest make some plays. I really want to see what they can try and muster, but it is pretty difficult. Like, Philip hasn't made much of an advantage in this top lane despite having the early kill go his way. So it's probably around the bot lane trying to attack Lost and Ignar.
It's a very different expectation for this team when you compare it to how they played yesterday, where a lot of that victory was off making sure that you had the strength in lane, not necessarily these skirmishes or having to be the one aggressing into these plays. So having that different look here today, we're wondering when Philip is going to be able to set off and try and take advantage of the resource being given. But down here on the bot side, Johnsun throwing down the culling, gets polymorph in response. Lost laying down the law. Can he follow up? Good range for additional poke onto Aphromoo. That fish is mighty squishy in the beginning.
Yeah, heal and cleanse burn, but stop the recalls.
Yeah.
We did it.
Let's go.
Definitely trying to force the issue. And the game is still at a bit of a breaking point. Like if FlyQuest is able to get solo kills, or if they are able to get a gank and get a turret, that gold lead could become really massive. And toucouille can also, at his Ludens and Sorcerer Shoes power spike, have one-shot potential on a lot of squishy players on Immortals. So anything still can happen.
Before the defenses rise too much for Immortals against that burst, FlyQuest, we're waiting with bated breath to see. And I mean, you mentioned it earlier with Lost and Ignar being able to hold their own against Johnsun and Aphromoo in this matchup. And I think that is an important thing to point out for them when we're looking at FlyQuest to get these solo kills, when we're looking at them to be the aggressors. But Immortals have Kenvi here on the bot side instead. Not sought out by that control ward just yet, lying in wait.
They're really thinking about going for a dive. PoE is here first.
Here, going for it. A charm onto one and the burn down onto Johnsun and Aphromoo. Immortals with a clean takedown to FlyQuest bot lane.
Oh, this is so huge for them. So even though there will be an injection of gold going over to FlyQuest for that Rift Herald, it's so much more power for Immortals. They're going to be able to get first turret solo for Lost Aphelios and likely control of the Drake if they just peel back and take that now.
Lost is that late game threat, the one that FlyQuest want to target to make sure that he can't shift things against them. And seeing him get these injections of gold early is great news for Immortals.
It is, and it's going to be a question of how can he perform in team fights, because we mentioned earlier it is a difficult game for him to play against Vi LeBlanc. Jose really trying to make something happen top lane, though.
Revenge now the target of JoseDeodo on the top side, using that ultimate to take him down. FlyQuest finds the opening to trade back towards Immortals.
Yeah, definitely a solid play there, although not really getting much out of it. We'll have to wonder, like, what Philip will need to make very good use of that gold. Much rather have that money on the LeBlanc. So the gold lead's still holding pretty steady for FlyQuest, but Immortals having those two dragons has got to feel good for their scaling chances.
Ahead in the neutral objectives, made sure they got more off of that dive in the bot side for FlyQuest. Wasn't really in a position on this top side to be able to continue that push on for a turret takedown. toucouille, he's going for a wild growth onto PowerOfEvil. The calling here answered with a tidal wave as well. Good jukes from PoE. Kenvi falls.
Massive play there by FlyQuest in the mid lane. They need that next minion wave to arrive, though, so they can get the turret. The kill on Kenvi is nice, but what can they do to advance the game off of this? Johnsun made a very nice play there.
A sacrificed jungler while the mid laner did survive for IMT. And the wave finally coming through somewhat. Aphromoo and Johnsun continuing to reside in the mid lane so that toucouille gets that time down bot to push that wave on his own and continue to accrue more gold.
This is a really nice spot that FlyQuest is in right now. They have the mid push, which has allowed Vi to go hide in here, and they were hoping that someone solo checks his turret so they can go for a kill. But PoE actually swept it out, so he's going to be able to take the safe route.
Great intel to grab here. We don't know where JoseDeodo is. Let's try and find out so Immortals can take some more safe pathing. And now JoseDeodo issued with a chance to come back here towards mid. Another lockdown onto Lost, who backs away. Teleport directly onto the turret. Johnsun, one last hit from the turret. Well, do it. Ignar with the kill credit. Lots of sums expelled. But my oh my, things are starting to get scrappy.
Yeah, things are definitely heating up in this one, but FlyQuest is right on the precipice of being able to break this game open. Almost got mid turret there, did get top turret. Really hoping to be able to get a pick in the side lane here against PoE.
toucouille's going for it, rooted upon the entry, charmed in response. Spear Rush activated, PowerOfEvil's going for it. Sees if he can get the real one. Doesn't finish off, but oh my, they've been dueling it out.
They really have. You could see toucouille couldn't quite get his chains to land on PoE after he used his alted distortion. So nothing really happens there.
And
It's actually probably better for toucouille aside from the map pressure because he gets ult and flash out of PoE. And now, maybe they can kill him.
Guys, looking at the Fox Slay to find, and our PowerOfEvil says, oh, there's 2 of us, 1 Aqua Prison, just to get the final setup for the takedown.
Jeez, that is a very rich buy. 7,600 gold on JoseDeodo's buy, 7,900 gold on the Aatrox. So they really need to play through those bruisers in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Because if they can use, basically they use this gold lead right now, they use probably the second completed item on Aatrox, and they're gonna be extremely powerful. Like, this is actually the moment in the game they've been waiting for. They have Gale Force, they have Imperial Mandate, and they're gonna have item leads on both of these players. So if they can really make advantage of these next 5 or 10 minutes, the scaling and the dragons that Immortals have won't matter.
And off of that pick over in that bot side, FlyQuest able to draw a lot of attention towards mid, which means toucouille could openly usher that Rift Herald over on bot. That gold lead that they have had has been extending continuously despite some of the interruptions from Immortals. FlyQuest have accrued a lot of advantages from the side lanes and beyond. Lost Wild Growth subject in answer to the culling, but mostly right now to create some distance. toucouille sees Kenvi here, but no reason to go for more.
Nicely done by FlyQuest there, getting the Ignar ultimate out. That will not be up in time for the next dragon. And they're also likely able to just get so much more map pressure on this mid turret. Kenvi goes stealth though.
Kenvi flashing forward for the play. toucouille marked down low. PowerOfEvil from the opposite flank. Johnsun is also in dangerous territory, but they get the land onto PowerOfEvil. Aphromoo making sure that he selects that target for sure.
Massive play there by JoseDeodo to actually lock them down and then chain CC for the rest of the team. Trying to get a very quick reset in here because I really don't think they can give over this Cloud Drake to Immortals. Remember, it is a new patch where the dragon is a lot tankier.
Oh, okay. So Philip a bit low here. And yes, with it being a bit tankier, taking a bit longer to actually kill the dragon gives you a little additional time if you're trying to rotate towards it to deny it. But most of FlyQuest has already made their way through so that they can set up. There you go, and Revenge is right here in the front line as he's supposed to be. Has to dash out of it. FlyQuest continuing their domain over the river area right now. PowerOfEvil is coming from base 2, doesn't have teleport to bring through, and Kenvi already chunked down. The jungler being in a dangerous spot is something that looks good for FlyQuest.
It's so hard for Immortals because they don't have mid or bot prio, so they're kind of trapped in the dragon pit right there, trying to fight their way out, but FlyQuest have all these retreat zones they can take to get out of this fight.
And they expel an ultimate just to lock down Philip, and the response from FlyQuest is we have some ults and more on our own, using the bubble to lock down. Lucian being very willing to throw out that culling just to get enough of an HP chunk onto Immortals, so that now FlyQuest, they can take this Drake. They can deny the soul stacking that Immortals was working towards.
They absolutely can. 5,000 gold, 1 Cloud Drake in pocket. They're likely next looking for Baron. When toucouille's LeBlanc completes this death cap, which he can do in about 600 more gold, that will give him the ability to one-hit pretty much anyone on the team not named Sejuani. So even the Wukong, if he lands a full combo on, might end up dying. So if they can play for that, get a pick, and then start forcing Baron, I think that's their path towards winning this game.
And 23 minutes into the game, 5.3k gold lead for FlyQuest.
Yeah.
You noted wanting to see them make those earlier plays. How has their performance aligned or not with how you think that they should have been playing that to their draft?
Yeah, I think if they would have had a higher priority on early dragons, if JoseDeodo would have used more of his advantage to secure those early drakes, they still would have had the power spikes to be able to bully their way to drakes 3 and 4. But the game is still in a winnable spot for them right now. It's just, 2 fewer drakes than I think they would like.
It adds that additional pressure when it comes to contesting the drakes in the future, but definitely alleviates some of it when they did get that third to deny that building up from the Immortal side. And as we are approaching 24 minutes, Baron's still up. A point of contention that will erupt over on the map. The turrets that were initially taken down by FlyQuest, getting rid of all these outskirts, just gives them a lot more of that rotational pressure.
Hello.
Philip here with Kenvi. Revenge is here as well, but Johnsun making his rotation from the mid lane. They don't actually want to take any fighting here. Just wanted to make sure there wasn't a pick-off.
Yeah, Philip definitely playing weak side because this is the area that they want to be able to control. Get that outer turret down and then start playing towards Baron. Step 1 complete. They got the outer turret. As you can see, Vi clearing vision out of the jungle. And they're even possibly looking for another second tier turret.
We've rooted temporarily, but able to get out of here. It's just now the arrival of Immortals. And it's always interesting to see the way that FlyQuest are basically controlling the pathing, controlling where IMT have to answer them on this map, having just taken down the tier 2 in mid and creating that presence over on the top side before somebody goes for this Baron.
Yeah, Immortals knows that FlyQuest have to reset, so they're retaking vision, which means FlyQuest will need to wait a little bit longer, but big item coming through, as we've talked about, the death cap for LeBlanc. Let's see if we can get some one-shots. Immediately teleporting back in. Double TP.
Philip is here, ushering through onto Immortals in the vicinity of their jungle. Revenge, somewhat chunked, tasked to dash away, threw out the ultimate to disengage.
So, less engaged now for Immortals if they want to try something. Definitely some thoughts on FlyQuest's side of going for this Baron. Their Baron damage is not that good, especially if Lucian is sat in the mid lane. Flank, though. Oh, it's so difficult. Like, really watch Lost in these team fights to see if he can ever actually hit. Because if he's ever in range of Vi or LeBlanc, he's also kind of in range of dying. But those are the two people he'd be wanting to hit anyway. So it's just a very tough Aphelios game for him.
Pressure on him to be able to reach those targets on FlyQuest without ushering his own vulnerability. There's only so much that Lulu can do for you if they get onto that back line. Sending Revenge over towards the spot side as well to continue. He does have the teleport to be able to rejoin the team. Tidal wave coming through, spin around. JoseDeodo backs off. FlyQuest being very careful to not go for more than they need to.
Yeah, and they will likely get that top turret as well. Philip able to get some free time up there. Plus they got the Aphelios flash, which makes him easier pickings for the future fight. I do expect there to be a big engagement for this next Cloud Drake that's spawning in 50 seconds.
I'm sure we'll get that action to come there. I'm looking at FlyQuest though, and the way over their games they have been able to manage these waves and also just slowly chip away at the map over time without having to go for those big team fights, because you know that's what Immortals want to do. They want to group and get into it as much as possible, and FlyQuest managed to keep them spread out, which is very dangerous for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think Philip has actually played a pretty solid game in terms of his ability to get sideways in.
Whoa!
Oh, man.
Ignar has to self-ult after that one. That burst becoming very much a threat from FlyQuest after some of this itemization. They're gonna continue going for it. Toucouille is feeling very strong. Philip flashing away. The prison comes through. Charm on to Philip. Burn down on to Kenvi. Backline for JoseDeodo gets in there with the ultimate. The wave knocks up a couple, and Revenge is the next to fall. Double kill for Johnsun here. Look at that hit onto Lost. Look at that triple kill for Johnsun. PowerOfEvil and Ignar on the retreat from defeat in this.
They can win.
Triple kill. Give it the picture. Johnsun going in for FlyQuest. The dub in the fight. The dub in the game.
Panic kill for Johnsun, and because the minion wave is right there, FlyQuest is going to end this at 28 minutes.
Oh my lord! FlyQuest want to turn all the haters into believers, making their final stretch before playoffs. And some hits to the Nexus is one way to get the fans on their side. FlyQuest with the win.
Wow. What a way to end that game. I'm thinking, okay, how are they going to set up vision around Baron? How are they going to stop this dragon stacking? Oh, actually, they're just going to pentakill with Lucian. He had finished IE. He had one kill before that fight. Pentakill and win. There we go. 9-8 FlyQuest. Congratulations.
Committing to it, following through, a clear game plan for them. We were wondering just how late it was going to go in those moments, but you get the fight, you get the fight, you get the fed Lucian, and you'll have the dub.
Yeah, so FlyQuest definitively locked for top 6. Still a possibility that they can get up to 10 wins and maybe make some noise for top 4. It would require Cloud9 and COG both losing tomorrow, as well as FlyQuest winning, but they're in the race for being able to get a higher seed. What is this pool? He's in.
Just a little. Did you ever play
in the
these
pool.
as a kid? Yeah, you know, little pool. Jump into it. I appreciate that there's one sacrificial lamb for each of the teams today to have
everyone
to
picks.
jump in. But yeah, FlyQuest coming in clutch with that one. I was just thinking yesterday, actually, when I was rewatching the FlyQuest game at home last night, thinking, we don't talk about Johnsun that much because he's usually not the one. It's, toucouille that they're playing around and things. But when you can have somebody that in that moment, that's all you need. Hey, you're going to get a penta right here to be able to finish it off. Make sure that you have that reliable damage for the rest of the team.
Yeah, such an interesting ending to this game because they spent most of the game playing through top jungle, getting 2 Rift Heralds, and not really winning that much in bottom lane.
Nope.
And then he just had enough gold, pentakill, and that's the game.
Yep. Pretty much up until that, all of the callings were used. I'm just going to chunk down here, or I'm just trying to make sure that we keep our own in this lane. They never really went for that direction of play, but hey, you come in through, you get something for your highlight reel, something to juice up your veins a bit.
A weird fun fact is the player in the LCS who gets counterpick the highest percentage of the time is Johnsun. You would never expect it to be an AD carry. You'd think it's going to be a top laner, but it's actually Johnsun. And I see them setting up the interview with Pastry Time and Johnsun right there. He says they're ready.
Hey, all right, they said they're ready. We're ready. We're joining Pastry Time and